business success, it comes naturally when you have all the questions answered. But specifically, designing inclusivity, it requires collaboration as well.
What we've found success in our studio and the partners we've worked with is one, really meaningfully engaging people and understanding their context, their journey, the pain points and behaviors that they have.
Now, a report from Deloitte Canada found that companies with strong DEI strategies are twice as likely to be innovation leaders in their specific industries.
So you hear a lot about the importance of meritocracy. DEI is the prerequisite. You cannot have real meritocracy
Without DEI, yeah.
unless you're giving yourself the advantage of being able to pull from the widest pool of talent and perspective and intelligence, right?
Innovation is not just about technology, it is about people and communities. Businesses that invest in inclusive and socially centered design are not only creating better products, but also shaping a more equitable future. Hi, this is Kripa Anand from Canadian SME. Welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where we bring together industry leaders to share insights that help Canadian entrepreneurs build innovative and inclusive businesses. A report from McKinsey Canada found that companies with diverse leadership teams are 25% more likely to outperform their peers in profitability. Yet, despite these, many businesses struggle to integrate inclusive design into their innovative process. Additionally, a study by BDC shows that over 50% of Canadian small businesses see inclusivity as a competitive advantage but lack clear strategies to implement it effectively. Joining us today is Derek Vaz, founder and CEO of With, a co-design studio dedicated to transforming progressive ideas into socially centered digital products and brands. With has worked on high-impact projects including collaborations with Nobel Prize-winning journalist Maria Ressa and has recently rebranded DVXT to With to better reflect its mission. Derek is here to discuss how inclusive design and co-creation can drive business success and innovation. Welcome to the show, Derek. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great, it's our pleasure. Now, Derek, innovation is often centered around users, but work focuses on a broader approach, right? That is the socially centered design. A study by the Design Management Institute found that design driven companies outperform the market by 28%, yet many businesses will still overlook inclusivity in their innovation strategies. Now, can you explain what socially centered design is for all the people who are explain it as simply as possible for a layman to understand what this term means and why is it so critical for business today?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So, our view of socially centered design and with our co-design studio really comes from two vantage points. So one, it's the acknowledgement that a lot of decisions that our businesses, clients, and customers make, they're in a larger social context, right? They're impacted by the state of the climate, the state of the economy, political changes. This is really part of the behavioral economics movement, where we don't see individuals as rational thinkers in the economy. They're context based, they're irrational thinking. From our side, I'm a career practitioner in design and in technology in the user experience field. And for your audience, a lot of user-centered design originated. The most popular kind of origins of it are from Apple. And the intention of that was simply to just make their technology more accessible. And the goal, obviously, was from a business standpoint for Steve Jobs to make sure that he was reaching as much of the population as possible with the technology they were creating. Socially centered design builds on those ideas of user centricity and human centered design to just acknowledge social factors that are happening and that are influencing people's decisions.
Great. Now, that is a fascinating shift, first of all, right? Now, many businesses, they focus on user experience alone, but considering the broader social impact of design, it could lead to more sustainable and innovative solutions for sure. Now, for businesses looking to transition to a more socially centered approach, Where should they start?
Yeah, we had the same question about 7 or 8 years ago when we started our studio.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I worked for a larger global consultancy. We worked with many global brands like Four Seasons.
Right.
We worked with partners even here in Canada, TELUS, companies who, in their origins, were very socially oriented, were very customer oriented.
Right.
And what we've learned from them, and I think what the opportunity we saw is to just bring more people into the process, into defining strategy, into defining how these products and services are created. And so that's where we started. Our goal, however, though, was to go beyond that and really make sure that the value that we were creating was also not creating harm, right?
Right.
So we talk about user centricity. A great example of that, a more modern example of that, is the Amazon Buy Now button, right?
Right.
Incredibly frictionless, great customer experience.
Right.
However, when you look at that at scale and you look at the implications that has on things like potential labor exploitation, on the impact to the environment,
Right.
there are wider implications to creating that frictionless experience in people's
Right.
lives. And I think business leaders are, for the most part, from our experience, intentioned. They don't want to create or
Definitely.
contribute
Yeah.
to social harms.
Right.
Our goal was, how do we solve that nugget of tackling these larger issues and having that wider perspective, but doing it in a way, obviously, that is feasible for
Right.
businesses. And the reality is just bringing more people into the fold and hearing from more perspectives and understanding directly from customers or the communities that
Right.
are our partners and their businesses impact.
Great, very interesting. Now, also, Derek, I'm sure you've come across a lot of companies that have gone through a lot of challenges, right? What are some of the most common mistakes that companies make when trying to integrate social impact into their design and innovation strategies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the narrative we see more often are where it's not working
Right.
and where people are failing. And it's because usually these are performative, I would say, in the sense that maybe it exists more in marketing and communications than it does really at the core of the business.
Right.
I was at a fireside chat last week for the Canadian Purpose Economy project. There's businesses from and representatives of not just business leaders, but community leaders, educators, all discussing the opportunity in Canada for purpose-led businesses. And the common theme from all of them was that purpose-led businesses at their core, at their defining first principles and values, really have to have social impact, equity, sustainability, these values in mind. And then, probably just as important, they have to have a clear sense of what that success looks like and what those outcomes look like. What are the key measures
Right.
that will deliver on that? And then that can inform every aspect of your operations, your marketing, your product development, your internal operations, your HR.
I always say this, it's all about asking yourself the right questions, the what, why, and how. And I think everything else just follows, right? Now,
Yeah, we're a big practitioner of the 5 why model
exactly.
and really going deeper and having more critical thinking.
Great. Now, a more inclusive design approach can lead to greater impact for all the listeners out there. We should definitely learn something from this. Business success, it comes naturally when you have all the questions answered. But specifically designing inclusivity, it requires collaboration as well.
Absolutely.
This brings us to the power of co design and driving innovation. Innovation is not just about technology, it is about people and communities. Businesses that invest in inclusive and socially centered design are not only creating better products, but also shaping a more equitable future. Now, a report from Harvard Business Review found that businesses using co design methods saw a 32% increase in customer satisfaction and loyalty, as it fosters obviously like strong connections relationship between creators and their end users. Now, co-design is becoming an essential tool for businesses looking to create more meaningful and impactful solutions. How does a co-design work in practice, and what advantages does it bring to businesses and organizations?
Yeah, great question. So there are many ways to engage in co-design activities, and it really depends on obviously the organization's goals,
Right.
the scope of the project. What we've found success in our studio and the partners we've worked with is one, really meaningfully engaging people and understanding their context, their journey, the pain points and behaviors that they have. But then also, and this is really for us as a design industry or working as practitioners, not to just take those as insights and then translate it through our own bias and our own lens into
Right.
solution, but actually bring them into the solution making process. So we've been doing some incredible work with a Bloomberg Philanthropies backed
Right.
nonprofit focused on solving real equity issues in the US in terms of the racial wealth equity gap that exists, building a really incredible, pretty sophisticated data visualization platform.
Mhm.
This is probably as much as that project I can talk about at this stage,
Right.
but we've had tremendous success bringing different types of people, policymakers, educators, community leaders, people who would really benefit from this work, either
So it's a
directly or
win-win situation
indirectly.
that way. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once we allow other people to have agency and we take our own ego out of the equation, really hear
Right.
and give people simple tools.
Mm.
There's the famous design thinking post-it notes you always see all the time, but allowing people to actually sketch out their ideas and bring them to the table, you'd be surprised. This isn't new. Not far from here, my mom spent most of her career working for Pepsi, and Pepsi famously was
Wow.
led by Indra Nui for a long time. And she was a huge proponent of co creation. She brought in, I believe, Pepsi's first chief design officer. She was always
Wow.
deeply engaged, and many of her ideas and innovations under her leadership were driven from customer led, not just insights,
Right.
but their ideas. And she was really rooted in the idea of sustainability and public health as
Mm.
part of her strategic objectives. So those two are really intertwined when you talk about inclusive innovation
Right.
and you talk about making a larger impact with your business. You really can't do it without inclusivity.
Great. That's a very valuable perspective, I'd say. The idea of co creation with communities rather than just designing for them is a major shift in a mindset and also how businesses approach innovation. Now, some companies worry that co design may slow down the innovation process, especially in the fast moving industry landscape like techs and startups.
Mhm.
How do you balance inclusive co design methods with the fast pace of innovation that startups and tech companies demand? Derek, this is a very genuine insecurity of a lot of business owners. So go
100%.
ahead and clear the misconception.
Yeah, this is one thing I'm very passionate about because I am of the tech community. I'm a
Right.
computer science graduate from the University of Waterloo. Early in my career, I had the opportunity to intern at really great organizations like IBM here in Toronto and NVIDIA out in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And the move fast, break things is a real business strategy that has, I think, taken hold not only in the tech community but outside of it. But I think now we're starting to see where that philosophy can lead to real social harms.
Right.
And the challenges that I always see with it is move fast, break things is a great uh, strategy if you're looking for that first mover advantage. You're trying to create that moat. You want to really get ahead of the competition.
Right.
And it's also great when you have seemingly endless capital. And I'm sure my fellow small and SME business owners out
Right.
there don't have that advantage. What we've always told our partners and what we found is that moving intentionally at the beginning may feel slow,
Mhm.
but you can move really quickly if you're operating from a place where you have better intelligence, right? And if you're
Right.
engaging people who are going to be the
Mm.
users and the people impacted in your work, you're going to have better intelligence. No one ever feels like they have the time and resources to do it right in the
Right.
beginning, but all of a sudden you will have to need the time and resources to do it twice.
Correct.
And that is just in the SME world, not an advantage that we have
Right.
compared to some of the big tech stories. So I would say move fast and break things is definitely not a good strategy for many reasons.
Definitely, that was very well articulated. Designing for inclusion, it's not just a trend, I think it's a necessity which everyone needs to realize. That brings us to how diversity, equity, and inclusion can be powerful drivers of business success, especially in today's ever evolving landscape. Before we dive into our next topic on how diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is the DEI, can drive business success, let's take a short break. Stay with us, and we'll be right back with more insights from Derek Vaz.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. Still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Book it. Ship it. Track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, we're in the business of you.
We're here to help you plug in,
Connect and recharge.
make an impression.
and meet with confidence.
With 19 brands built for business,
your business gets even more rewarding.
With an award-winning loyalty program at 6,000 IHG hotels and resorts worldwide.
Welcome back, listeners. We've explored socially centered design with Derek Vaz. Now let's dive into how DEI strategies drive innovation and long-term success. Now, a report from Deloitte Canada found that companies with strong DEI strategies are twice as likely to be innovation leaders in their specific industries. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion have become key priorities for many businesses. But some organizations specifically, they struggle to translate these values into real innovation. How can businesses, Derek, build more inclusive strategies that benefit both their bottom line and also the overall strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. To us, these aren't divergent things. And
Mm.
there are many great examples of businesses out there, probably most notably Apple, but even Jamie Dimon at
Right.
Chase. He said, I think there's a $30 billion initiative that Chase has to invest in diversity and equity initiatives, and they're not moving away from that, no matter the sort of narrative right now or the political pressures. When we see backlashes to these movements or people struggling to implement them,
Mm.
it usually comes from this perception that these are diametrically opposed
Right.
objectives. You hear a lot about the importance of meritocracy. DEI is the prerequisite. You cannot have real meritocracy
Without
unless
DEI, yeah.
unless you're giving yourself the advantage of being able to pull from the widest pool of talent and perspective and intelligence, right? It's
Mm.
just common sense if you think about it that
Right.
way. But there are real criticisms of how some of these programs have been implemented. I've heard from business leaders that it can be disengaging when you start to build a diverse workforce, but then there are no opportunities
Mm.
for real agency for contribution
Right.
or upskilling or upward mobility in the organizations. Those examples you gave are great because they reflect organizations who have representative leadership, or they have the opportunity for diverse perspectives to actually contribute to solutions in the organization. I think it goes back to, are you really committed for the benefit of your business, or is this just sort of
Mm.
surface level posturing?
That is a great approach, first of all. Businesses that embed inclusivity into their core operations rather than just treating it as an afterthought are the ones that will see the biggest impact. So, kudos to you guys for doing that. Now, you have worked with high profile clients, including Nobel Prize-winning journalist Maria Ressa. Now, that must have been an incredible experience, of course. What exactly, Derek, did you learn from working with Maria, and how did it shape your approach to socially centered design and innovation?
Maria was instrumental in a lot of the thinking. She remains an inspiration to this day. I always try to check in on her and see how things are going. In the moment we had the opportunity to work with her, I learned really so much. Maria's background is in investigative journalism, but she was also really prescient about the opportunity and the dangers of technology. She's a Filipino journalist in the Philippines where, her news organization was a fact checker for Facebook. They recently have rolled back that decision about how they operate fact checking in news. And she saw how, based on her experience doing really deep investigative journalism into like terror networks, and then seeing how people can manipulate social media platforms and really have wide scale implications
Definitely.
on perverting democracy and biasing outcomes in terms of the political
Brainwashing the mindset.
effectively. And she took that data to Facebook at that time before they were Meta, and they dismissed her. And then the 2016 elections happened in the US, and then they went back and said, okay, can we see that data again? And that's one area where I think we've learned a lot from Maria about being cautious and being critical about the promise of technology. It's again coming being a technologist myself. The second thing we learned from me as Maria is just the idea and the power of real community engagement. Our role together was actually working to find ways to connect news to civic engagement, right? Right now, I think we live in what is called a rage economy, right? Where news gets people really fired up, but where do you direct that energy other than just screaming into the void, right?
Exactly. You have to channelize it.
Exactly. And the opportunity with Rappler was building on Maria's news organization, one of the largest digital news organizations in Southeast Asia, was building on the work that they had already been doing, like in hosting community workshops to get a real change happening at the policy level, at the government level. So road safety, for example, is a big thing, or creating like a community-based watch and alert system for hurricanes, which the Philippines experiences a lot. That is, to me, is real community-driven innovation. And it really just involves, taking the time and effort to build bridges and bring more people into the fold and learn from that diverse set of knowledge. That's really what diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives give you. We're working with a Montreal-based inclusive transformation organization, it's inclusive, to develop a joint venture called Refraction. And Refraction, the purpose of that is to build on organizations who have made that inclusive investment and work with them through co-design activities to help them, in the spirit of what Indra Nui did at Pepsi, come up with innovative concepts and deliver on strategic objectives. And we're really seeing, despite the climate that we're in, a lot of interest in this program, and we're really excited about it.
Wow, the future of innovation is definitely being inclusive, and the companies that recognize this will lead the way, as I said. Derek, this has been a very insightful conversation, I'd say. As we wrap up, is there any one key takeaway you want business leaders to remember about socially centered design and and innovation, and what would it be? Right after listening to your podcast, what is that one thing that they should focus on?
One thing is really hard to articulate. I would say one, just be really clear about your values, how you're going to measure outcomes. And especially in the climate we're in, great business strategy should be about building bridges, not moats. Reach out. You have a great initiative with the Indigenous SME. There is a ton of incredible Indigenous leaders and a ton of great Indigenous knowledge. That's our great strength in Canada, our diversity. And we've done a lot of work with and continue to do work with Truth and Reconciliation. That's just one example of how we can build on the history of Indigenous innovation that exists already in Canada. Build those bridges to different organizations, to your customers, to people in your community. You will be surprised at how that will accelerate innovation in your organization.
Wow, that was a wonderful advice, I'd say. Thank you so much, Derek, for doing this and being a part of this podcast. It was an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, thank you.
That was an absolutely incredible conversation with Derek Vaz, founder and CEO of WITH, on how socially centered design and DEI can drive business innovation and success. A very special thank you to our podcast partners RBC, UPS, IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Google for their continued support of small business success. For more expert insights and resources, visit CanadianSME.ca and subscribe to our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.